Hey everyone, it's Susan Pierce Thompson and welcome to the weekly vlog. And I'm here today to do a follow-up video on my honest quantities in restaurants vlog that I did 3 months ago. It's now early June and I pledged that in early June I would record a vlog to follow up because I decided that I was going to do a challenge to see if I could whip myself into shape and be more honest about my quantities in restaurants. So the situation is that I tootle along, sticking with my bright lines. I go into a restaurant and suddenly I abandon my sense of propriety or proportion when it comes to the portions that I eat in restaurants. I sort of kind of go offline, check out in my head, and just go, oh, well, it's probably good enough, without really looking at the plate and making an honest judgment. And I know that the reason I do that is so that I can eat more food. I'm a quantities girl. I've learned that over the years. I love sugar, I love flour, but at the end of the day, I'd just rather have more food, just more. I have a disease of more. That's how I roll. I'm definitely somebody who does not have the wherewithal to stop eating based on internal physiological signals. I haven't had that. I guess I had it as a kid. I don't remember having it as an adult. So I like feeling stuffed beyond the point where other people would feel comfortable. So in restaurants, I'm not using a digital food scale, and I can eat more food than I should be eating. And I think for a lot of people they sort of give themselves a free pass, and I really don't have any judgment about that. But for myself, I was feeling I really should be working harder to be more honest in restaurants. So I vlogged about it 3 months ago. You can go check out the vlog from 3 months ago if you didn't catch it then. But anyway, I said that I would keep track. So what I did over the past 3 months, so 84 days, is I kept track of every single time I ate out in a restaurant. And I averaged eating out 3.77 times per week over the last 3 months. And it wasn't, 3 to 4 times a week steady. I eat out way more when I travel and way less when I'm at home. So if I'm traveling and I'm at a conference, I might have to eat out almost every meal. I almost always pack my own breakfast, but then often I'm eating out for lunch and dinner. If I'm home, I can go, a whole week and eat out once maybe. That would be typical, once or twice. But it was 3.77 times on average. I believe, let me just show you my graph here. So what I did was I logged it in my smartphone every time I ate out, and I gave myself a score from 1 to 5. So 1 means not honest at all, and 5 means so squeaky clean honest that it was like guaranteed as good as a meal at home. Just absolutely impeccably honest. And then this is less honest. This is, something kind of, went awry where I was, So I remember this meal here was I had arrived home on Mother's Day from a red-eye flying from the West Coast to the East Coast. I didn't sleep much on the red-eye at all. And I arrived home, had to get home, shower, try to unpack, get all 3 kids out to Mother's Day brunch, dress them, hair, blah, blah, blah. Arrived at this brunch and it was a whole bunch of not my food. There was some vegetables that, but anyway, and it was kind of a small plates going back for more. That meal was tricky. So that was that meal right there. Anyway, so 5 was honest, 1 was not honest, and I want to say a few things about this graph. So I believe, 40, so I ate out 44 times in 84 days. And the first thing I want to say about this graph is that I believe this is good to me. This is amazing. I'm proud of this. This to me is, wow. That 30 times eating impeccably, I would be shocked if in the 3 months before that, I did that 5 times. I mean, honestly, 30 is amazing. And I remember I was very motivated after I made that pledge to you guys. I was really motivated to eat honestly in restaurants. And I think the first 20 meals were all 5s. I felt very surrendered and very willing. And what this shows me is it's possible. I had gotten to the point where I thought it was maybe not even possible to be honest in restaurants, that it was too hard, too tricky. My eyes are too broken. I had kind of a narrative in my head that wasn't serving me well. It's too hard, it's too tricky, my eyes are broken, good enough is good enough. And yet, there's a mind game, a fantasy that I always play with myself, where I imagine arriving at a county fair and they've got a game, where they have guess how many jelly beans are in the jar or whatever. Well, they've got a game going on where they're like, who can come closest to measuring 8 ounces of salad and 4 ounces of tofu and 6 ounces of broccoli? Come try, fill out a plate and we will weigh it and closest one wins. If they said that, I would be jumping out of my skin like, oh my gosh, it's finally my contest. I'm going to win this. And I would go nail it, right? So deep down somewhere in me, there's a part of me that knows that I can estimate portions accurately. And yet I had this other narrative, almost like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, where I'm like, oh, it's too hard. But really, that's my saboteur, like winding its way around my integrity, like a vine, like starving it out, whispering in my ear, saying, you don't have to be that honest. It's not necessary. You're doing just fine. So the first thing I notice about the graph is it's possible. It is totally possible for me to be honest in restaurants. That's the first thing I notice. The second thing I'm aware of from the experience itself is that it's an awareness. It's a practice. It's like a meditation. In order to be honest with my portions in restaurants, I have to come online with my awareness as I'm ordering the food, as the food is arriving, and be present and in the moment, look at the food and make an honest assessment. And I think, I'm going to put this down now because I think you've seen it. I think, checking my my straps, I think with 3 little kids, that's part of the challenge for me, is that being present and aware is hard because there's so much chaos going on and I'm attending to so many other people's stuff. And if I'm not with my kids, it means I'm probably on a trip at a mastermind group or some kind of business event or entrepreneurs or health industry people or whatever, some conference, and I'm talking to people, I'm managing my own social perception, I'm, navigating social situations. I find it hard sometimes to come online and be present in a mealtime situation. So that's the second thing I notice, is that it's an awareness. The third thing that I noticed is those 30 times that I ate impeccably in restaurants, a lot of them I brought my digital food scale and I weighed my food. And I never used to do that. 1, because I was taught not to. 2, because I wanted to eat more food. So why would I weigh my food to get less? But now I was really motivated to get the right amount. And what I noticed is I often eat out in places where it's perfectly appropriate for me to weigh my food. For example, there's a grocery store here in Rochester, New York called Wegmans. And at every Wegmans, they've got a prepared foods section, very similar to like how Whole Foods does or something like that. And they've got a cafeteria area with just tables and chairs. You just go sit on your own. Well, I can get food on a plate, bring a second plate, and then weigh my food out at the table. I'm eating by myself, or I'm eating with people who don't mind and don't care, or they do bright line eating too, odds are. So in the past, I would take that as an occasion to, my saboteur would be like, oh, you're going to go eat out at Wegmans. Oh, they have such good, yummy cooked vegetables, and you're going to get plenty. And I would take more than I needed. Well, now I just brought my scale with me. And so those meals were 5 out of 5 because I weighed my food. There are other occasions too where, for example, I was on a cruise and they have a cafeteria style place on the cruise. I weighed my food. So that's another thing I noticed, is I can be way more kind of liberal with bringing my scale. I'm not gonna, if I get invited to eat at the White House, I'm not bringing my digital food scale. But if I'm eating in a cafeteria, there's no reason I can't weigh my food. So that's another thing I noticed. Now, for those who don't do bright line eating or don't weigh their food, I just gotta say, I'm a 10 on the susceptibility scale. For me, weighing my food brings tremendous peace. If you haven't tried it, I recommend it. So much peace. So, what else did I notice? I noticed that my bandwidth was a big issue. It was much harder to be honest in restaurants because it was harder to be present and come online when I'd been traveling, when I'd taken a red-eye flight, when my kids were around, if I was sleep deprived, if I was jet lagged. And I'm noticing that in general, because my life is so full these days, it's harder for me to show up to a situation with enough mental reserves to have the kind of, it's harder to be honest about my food. I have to show up and try. It's a matter of will. It's a matter of exerting effort. And if my willpower tank is depleted, it's either hard or sometimes it felt almost impossible to do it. So that's another thing that I noticed. And then lastly, let me just share something that happened last night. Something really interesting happened last night. I was out to eat last night with my daughter Zoe. It was a one-on-one date. Once a week, we take our kids on one-on-one dates. We have 3 daughters. My mom, my husband, and I each take one of the girls, and we just spend quality one-on-one time with them. So we went out to eat where my daughter wanted to go out to eat. And it's a restaurant I've been to a million times before. I know how to order there, etc. And it's actually a restaurant where I can get too many vegetables because it's a Japanese hibachi style place. And a lot of people, shockingly, say no thank you to the vegetables. And then they have them on the grill there, right there, and they have to pawn them off on other people sitting in the semicircle. So in the past, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take the vegetables because typically I don't get enough vegetables where I'm eating. So there I was with vegetables on my plate. And what I did was I looked honestly and I thought, that's probably too many vegetables. And then I thought to myself, in the past, I would have just eaten them. So what? It's a bunch of vegetables. I ate them. And then I felt awful for the rest of the night and this morning, like spiritual turmoil, kind of like, why did I do that? I knew it was too much. I should have taken them off my plate. Now, for anyone watching who's not a 10 on the susceptibility scale or can't relate to going into angst over what you've eaten or not eaten or whether you're on your plan or off your plan, I gotta say, it's just a weird thing about the way I'm wired. And I think my guess is that I got a lot of people in my tribe who are wired similarly, where bites of food that I take or don't take can have a huge impact on my thinking and feeling in the hours and days after. It's shocking how much I can be thrown off in my essence over something that I've eaten. And sometimes when I'm really free, it doesn't happen for months. I'll go months without being thrown off by anything I've eaten. And that's what I love. That's what I talk about as freedom. Happy, thin, and free. That's the freedom. That I'm not being thrown off by anything I'm eating or not eating. It's like the food is neutral. Well, last night, I got really thrown off by that decision. And it was interesting. In the moment, what I was thinking in that restaurant was literally, this is too hard. My life is too stressful. I shouldn't sweat myself these vegetables. I should just eat them. I want to go back. I want to bury my head in the sand back before I cared about my quantities in restaurants and just go back to doing it that way. Let me see if I can try and just get away with it again the way I used to for all those years. That's what I was thinking. And over the night, my spirit told me, you can't ever go back, Susan. When you're awake, you can't go back to sleep. When you're aware, it's hard to sink back into lack of awareness. So this morning I called a friend. I cried for a minute on the phone. She told me to go back to bed and to sleep some more, and I did. At 8:30 in the morning, I canceled my morning and I went back to bed for 2 hours. And I realized, one of the things we say in recovery is that the road gets narrower. The road gets narrower. Behaviors that used to, when I quit drinking and using drugs, when I was 20 years old, 21, 22 years ago. I was smoking cigarettes. I was at Denny's eating massive, non-abstinent, not bright line eating breakfast, right? Not my food, at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, after a midnight 12-step meeting. I was sleeping around. I was sucking down coffee, but I was not drinking or using drugs. And it was a big win because my drinking and drug problem had gotten bad enough that anything else I could have been doing would have been an improvement. Since then, I can't smoke, I can't suck down coffee, I can't sleep around, I can't do I can't stay up till 4 in the morning. Like, those things don't work for me anymore. The road has gotten narrower. And so what I think I have just experienced in my food journey is that the road has gotten narrower. I now need to be accountable and honest with my food to a degree that I didn't used to have to. And I just tried experimenting last night with, let me just try to go back. And my spirit said, no, you can't. You can't go back. So I'm going to keep tracking my restaurant meals in my smartphone and, experiencing the next leg of this journey. And thank you for being a part of this 3-month accountability experiment. I gotta say, it really worked for me. I mean, it really meant a lot to me to know that you would be here holding my commitment. And some of you, I imagine, even remember that maybe you remember that last vlog, and now here's the follow-up vlog. So it worked and it helped, and damn it, I have to be more honest than I used to be. Some of the people that I respect the most in Bright Line Eating say honesty begins with the food. If you're like me, if you're like one of us, if you're in this Bright Line Eating tribe, it means that your food is a keystone habit. What you do with your food is what you do with everything else in your life. If I'm not honest with my food, I'm not honest in my life. So it starts there. So anyway, that's the weekly vlog. Thank you for joining me. If you have a question or a topic you'd like me to address in a future vlog, just send it in. I'm at susan@brightlineeating.com. I'll see you next week.